Despite what their moms told them, they just aren't talented enough for radio. Unfortunately, anyone can have a show these days. Sean.
Well, I'm pretty hard to figure out sometimes. In fact, I can't even figure myself out sometimes, so don't you try to.
Joe.
You're an idiot and really a disloyal person.
This is the Cuse Militia. Those two unapologetically biased, orange-blooded homers, Sean and Joe.
It's the most bullshit thing I've seen in 30 years.
Welcome, orange men and ladies. Happy Sunday. This is the Cuse Militia with Sean and Joe. At Cuse Militia on the socials. Go there, join the militia. Syracuse with an abysmal showing on senior night in the Dome. A 38-3 loss to FSU. The Orange can only muster up 3 first downs in the first half. I think they went 1 for 11 on third down conversions for the game. FSU with 236 yards to Syracuse's 61 in the first half tells the tale of the game. You'll hear from us and we'll hear from you in fan feedback. We are going to be live on the Spotify Live app and on YouTube. So Syracuse drops 4 in a row. An awfully confusing, baffling, maybe kind of depressing loss, and we'll get into it. But I feel like the team's got, I don't know, man. I don't try to be dramatic here, but I don't see any direction in this team right now. I'm sorry. I'm trying to think of words that aren't, or things to say that don't seem dramatic. But the team seems lost to me, and as long as the players are in it, the coaches, I feel like game plan needs to, well, we'll get into it. In fact, let's hear what Coach had to say immediately following the loss.
I'd like to start off by saying we're extremely disappointed in the locker room that we couldn't send the seniors off and our juniors that are declaring the right way. And, it really bothers a lot of people, and it bothers our family a great deal. The senior walk is something that we take a lot of pride in, and we try to send those guys out the right way. I did not get an opportunity, and I never get an opportunity to see how it goes. I really hope that the fans and the alumni and the student body of the JMA got an opportunity to say goodbye to some fantastic cats. I mean, guys that have get blood, sweat, bones, ligaments, injuries. These guys have given a lot to the Orange, and my heart really bleeds for them. We have 3 more games left, 1 game at a time. The performance out there today, you have to put that on me. I take responsibility for that, full responsibility, and it was not good enough. There's no way. That's not what we represent, regardless of all the things that are going on, regardless of who's out there, who's not out there. We're better than that. And we're going to start working on that tomorrow. We cannot continue to act like that's okay. It is not okay. And the responsibility starts with me, and that's where it needs to end for tonight. Questions?
When did the team know that Schrader was going to be out there tonight? Was it another game time decision, or was that something you guys knew a little bit earlier in the week?
He worked during the week with the other quarterbacks. Depending on how he felt good enough, so we made the call.
And then did you consider pulling him any earlier as things started to get messy there late in the game?
No. Based off of the things that he's done for us, he deserved the right to stay in there until that time that we decided to take out him and Tucker at the same time. Don't worry, those players were out there and they were trying hard. Sometimes that energy's used in the wrong way, but they were giving 100%. You got to put that back on me.
And finishing 1 for 11 on third downs, how do you improve that going forward when defenses are going to keep being aggressive on that down specifically?
Well, obviously 1 out of 11 is not very good, and any time when the numbers are that screwed, you need to look at the coaches. Well, again, you guys, when I say the coach, here's my thing. Put it on me. Don't put it. We have to find a way. If the talent level drops a little bit, then you got to find a way to be successful with the talent level that you have. And sometimes you train guys to do one thing, and that's great. But we got a lot of experience. We got a lot of knowledge, and sometimes it's time to do something different.
Maybe a couple more starting with Luke.
Coach, 10 penalties for 72 yards. How do you coach that up in practice this week?
You know what? This is what I'm going to say. That's the same crew that came here and gave us 18 penalties at Louisville. Okay, most of the same crew from Clemson. Okay, and most of those penalties they called, we did them. We lined up offsides. We held. Okay, so we need to stop doing that.
And last question, Emily.
This is the fourth straight week your defense has kind of been run over by opposing running backs. I'm curious, is there just a lesson that's not being learned there? Is it each team is presenting something slightly different that makes it more challenging? What's just not clicking there despite having seen it multiple times now?
Again, it's we see it, we know what's going on. It's not like, hey, we know what's going on. It comes down to that we have to do better in three phases. We have to win the field position battle. We have to convert on third down so our defense doesn't play as much time as they do play on the field. And then the defense has to do a nice job of getting out of third down situations.
I felt all right. I mean, I wasn't necessarily 100%, but I felt good enough to go, and I felt like I was ready to play. So.
Getting back out there, did you feel like you had some rust to shake off just from missing these last 6 quarters? And how would you assess your performance tonight?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't play particularly well, I mean, it happens. But just moving forward, we got to find a way to get connected, and just make sure everybody's on the same page, and make sure we're working as a unit is the biggest thing, and just moving forward for next week.
All right, well, there you have it. So there were no questions about Jihad Carter last night that I heard. He looked like he left the game on crutches and not great. They just keep piling up, and it doesn't get any better. So,
nope.
Look, the game, as Coach mentioned, obvious disappointment. It's a tough way to send the seniors out. I did see a lot of rumblings on Twitter that for the fans that did stay after and I watched the senior walk and all of the players that participated in the senior walk. The camaraderie there between the fans that stayed and the players that walked. There was a common theme, and that was that. They forgot about the game, okay? As bad as it was, to do the senior walk thing is a special thing. I was at the first one, actually, against Louisville when Eric Dungy, I think that's how the tradition started. So yeah. It's a really cool thing if you've never been able to do it, and for the people that stayed to experience that, then that's pretty cool. So it's a special thing. But yeah. I digress.
I don't blame anybody for leaving early. Certain people. We know that there's certain people that have left early. We obviously saw the crowd, right? Mm-hmm. And it's an 8:00 game, so I'm not going to pile on too much with the people that left, because you want to have people stay for that to show respect for the players. But really, I can understand people leaving. What I can't understand are the people that left, didn't give the respect, and on top of that went home behind their keyboard and wanted to talk crap about them. That's the issue that I have. So
yeah,
they're just kids.
It's tough. Yeah, and and look. This is one, I said at the beginning, Coach took responsibility. He says we're better than that. We got to start tomorrow. Look, I don't know if they can fix it. I don't know if going forward things are going to be different, but this is a case of, I think the execution is one thing, but if the game plan's not there, it's difficult to execute. And I think Schrader stayed in longer than I think he should have. I do understand maybe keeping him in there to knock some of the rust off and just get him some reps and just be able to get out there in kind of a situation where the game was out. He wasn't out there to start some kind of big comeback or anything like that, or it was just maybe him getting out there and getting some reps because he'd been sitting for 6 quarters. So I would have liked to seen him. He did end up with something, laceration on his finger somehow, and that was bandaged up post game. And, you could see it on the, if you watched the game, you saw that. So I don't think that's a huge deal. But obviously not 100%, Joe. We heard him talk at the end. He's obviously wasn't 100%, but he went anyway. And you wonder if maybe he should have just waited another week. But in hindsight, right?
Hindsight, it's all in hindsight, right?
Right.
Obviously, he's the one that gives us the best chance to see. But this is the issue where I think that the Syracuse ends up having, right? Because we have some depth issues and some recruiting issues and stuff like that where, may not even be to any fault of our own. But at the end of the day, it's up to the coaches to kind of get these guys, in. And, this is what's kind of bad when you have a situation like, for instance, Schrader in the beginning of the year when everyone was good and, they tailored a scheme and an offense around him and Tucker and some of the other guys, right? Problem is you lose those guys, and now that's not just a plug and play. Now you got your guys and your backups coming in. Now, that offense and scheme might not necessarily work to their strengths. And, I think that's really what we're seeing, that and obviously the gap of depth and all the injuries trying to pile up. But to what Dino said, at some point, you got to change it up. And I think that, we kind of get hamstrung a little bit by that. And because, again, you lose one guy, you know what I mean? You lose one guy like a Schrader or a Tucker or something like that. And then the next guy doesn't plug in the same way. And that's just the difference between, teams that can sit there and recruit their guys into their systems and, where we're stuck kind of trying to get the best available, right? So.
Yeah, and you're doing the best with what you got. Coach mentioned that too. It's a thing where it just looks like to me that offensively, especially, that they're just not on the same page. And you heard Schrader, say, we just got to play as a unit. And I just don't think that they're doing that. Gadsden's getting double teamed constantly. We're still looking for someone to step up. And receiver-wise, the offensive line is getting no push. It's a struggle for Tucker. And, Kalen Ellis, he was out. When did he go out? Was it was for Pitt, right? It was the first game he wasn't there, right? If I remember right.
Yeah, I think he got hurt during Notre Dame and sat Pitt. But, yeah, he came in a little bit later yesterday. But, Enrique Cruz hadn't been that great. It's just you start to see the mental errors, And, again, that's why he brought up. You could bring up the team and everything, but those guys got to be mentally, locked in and do their job. And, you just see – I saw a whole bunch of you start losing and you start getting down. You got players and people that start trying to make big plays and doing things, not necessarily doing their job, right? So, and then you just got guys that are just like, I'm sorry, but like, and I was watching it yesterday and I was like, man, I said, if Rhino was healthy this whole year, what would this Sean Tucker look like? Because that Wes Ho and Max Mang, they just had. Missed block after hold after just, they're out of position. They're doing the best they can, but there's nobody else. So, again, we're trying to plug in these guys to do things that they can't do. Justin Barron, they scored a touchdown where they were supposed to switch. I saw Isaiah Johnson look at him like, what are you doing, right? There was another touchdown where Jordan, I don't know if it was a touchdown, but Jordan Travis, he was the guy that had the quarterback, and he kept it, and Justin Barron went inside to go after the running back, and Jordan Travis just took off. So you started to see people that were getting into their emotions. Senior night, lost 3 in a row, and they're just trying to make a big play, and by doing that, they're not doing their job. They're leaving their teammates out to dry, and it was awful. On top of the fact that Florida State was just a horrible matchup for us, especially considering the last 4 or 5 games that we played. And you talk about their running attack, but on top of that, the big receivers they have. We brought in everybody in the box. This is like one of the first games we've done that. And they got 2 receivers that are just way too big for our corners. So throw it out to them, easy touchdown.
Well, there was, Deuce missed one for a touchdown. I think Isaiah Johnson missed a tackle for a touchdown.
No, Jeremiah Wilson.
He was
the one that got stiff armed, and he fell.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So mental errors and mistakes. Players are, like Coach said, players are out there. They're trying. I didn't see
It's not. Like
I didn't see a lax. Huh?
It's not like they weren't trying.
They were. It's not. You're right. It's not like they weren't. They were. The effort was there. I feel like the effort was there. The whole game, as sad as it was,
they were supposed to.
They were just doing it wrong. Like Coach said, the energy was focused in the wrong areas, and they just weren't playing as a cohesive unit. And they're going. Look, I don't know how you hit the reset button on this in a week and fix it. I really don't. Going into Wake Forest and the penalties. What was it? 10 penalties for 72 yards. It's been a huge. Yeah. It's been a huge problem all year. I don't see it getting fixed. Like Coach said, this was this was most of the crew from the Louisville game, and the 18 penalties. It was most of the crew from the Clemson game there, where we could complain about some calls, but most of these calls are legit. I'm seeing them while I'm watching the game live.
And it was the timing too. I mean, a lot of those penalties were just timing. I mean, we catch a ball and on our 5-yard line. Why? I don't know.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yes.
And then we get a hold that it's half the distance, right? Yeah, and then the very next, the last possession that we had going into half, it was pass complete, holding, punt, declined, right? I mean, the first drive coming out of halftime, we start off with a run for 5 yards, then we get a run for 6 yards. Supposed to be a first down, turns into an illegal formation. Passing complete, and it's a 3-and-out for 0 yards, and it's a minute and 23 seconds. We had 12 drives yesterday, and there were, what's that? 3, 4, 5, 6 3-and-outs. There's only 3 out of 12 drives that we had were over 2 minutes. Every other one was less than 2 minutes. So, you're not going to do that. I mean, we had, I thought, an opportunity when they came out, they scored, and then we had gotten, that field goal, which we really only got the field goal because we got bailed out for. They got a penalty, face mask, right?
Penalty, yeah.
Right. So we end up going and we got a field goal. Then we come back and we get a damn fumble. So we get a chance to actually, we might be able to do something here. It's only 14-3, score a touchdown. Even if you kick a field goal,
10-14 at that point. Try the field goal, right?
Right. But what do? Pass for -1 yard, run for -5 yards, sacked for -6 yards, missed field goal.
Yeah. And that field goal, by the way, looked extremely rushed to me. I don't understand. Like, I didn't, if it wasn't a false start, if it was damn close, because I didn't feel like everybody was set. It was like, it just seemed very out of sync. So everything just seemed out of sync, man.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is it 54 yards? I mean, Schmidt hits that with his eyes closed in the dome. I mean, that's why Coach sent him out there. He's like, all right, well, let's just get the guaranteed 3. Schmidt's been on fire all year. There's no way he misses this thing. And lo and behold, just a sloppy set, and just the whole thing just didn't look right from the beginning.
And our penalties were legit, but I think the issue that I had, and I'm not saying this because I think that it would have changed the game or anything like that, but I saw about 3 to 5 holds that they did not call for or on Florida State, so to speak. I mean, one of their first longer runs on the sideline, Jahad Carter was obviously held.
Yeah.
And they didn't call anything. I thought that one of the sacks that Schrader, when he got sacked, I think by Jared Verse, there was a linebacker that came in, lowered his head, and I thought that was some type of targeting or something like that. So, I mean, there were some things there that they did miss. So that's where, I don't like the discrepancy portion of it. As far as, I don't mind that they called the ones that we had because they were legit, but I was more upset at the blatant ones that they missed on the others. Not to say that it would have changed the outcome of the game. Just saying that, they definitely missed some easy ones there on the Florida State.
Yeah, I mean, right. And it's worth mentioning, but at the end of the day, it's a freaking mess.
No, yeah. I mean, like I said, it's not going to change the outcome of the game. But again, fair is fair.
Fair is fair, and egregious. Right, absolutely. So, with the injuries piling up, like Joe says, they need to evolve. I mean, the unit needs to evolve essentially. With the coach's game planning and making this thing a little bit more streamlined for who you have in there, and they have failed at being able to do that, Joe. There's a lot of experience. There's a lot of knowledge on this team. There's a lot of high IQ football guys on this team. But if you're not directing them to where they need to be and what they need to be doing, then you're not utilizing them. And you sometimes have to maybe call an audible on what your identity is. And obviously that hasn't been done. And I understand the criticism for it. And I think, Coach took all of the responsibility, and I understand it. I understand. Look, I'm pissed too. I mean, I understand everybody getting extremely upset about that game. My son was the most upset, my 15-year-old. He was the most upset I seen him during a game. I couldn't tell you when. He was pissed. I had to tell him to go to bed. He was pissing me off. So it was tough to watch. It was terrible. It was frustrating. And the coaches take responsibility for it. But the Fire Baber stuff has fired back up. And I just think that's a wild overreaction right now. This coach, these coaches are new with each other too. They are learning each other's skill sets and things like that too. And sometimes it takes a little while to figure out, what do you do? Fire Babers, then what? Start over again? We got good offensive coordinator. We got a good defensive coordinator. I feel like the coaches, the talent on the coaching staff is there. You just got to, they just got to figure it out. And I mean, it ain't gonna get figured out. I'm going to Wake Forest next week. Okay, that's my birthday trip. Going there.
So am I.
I know. Oh, coincidence. Maybe we'll see each other.
Maybe.
So it doesn't deter me from going. Of course, I want to go and watch a win. Anything could still happen. I'm not saying that, they're going to get their asses handed to them. But I'm going to tell you what, that's going to be difficult to fix everything and to see this thing streamlined within a week. And Coach says it starts tomorrow. Well, it should have started like 3 weeks ago. Like this, like the taking responsibility and all of these things should have started a long time ago. And I understand,
but what do?
I understand,
when
though,
someone's
too,
got
Joe,
a high ankle sprain and you don't know if he's going to play or not,
I know.
right?
In
the middle of the week, you're just going to change everything?
I totally get it. Well, look, that's why I'm not a coach, because I'm not smart enough to figure it out. But he is. They are. And they're getting paid for it. So, that's all. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying
I get it.
I'm not saying that that it should have been already done and we should be cruising through wins right now. Look, FSU was a terrible matchup for us. I tried to stress that. We had to do the show freaking twice. So I don't know.
Worse than Clemson and Pitt.
Worse, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. It was a terrible matchup. And I can't remember which show I said it in, either the show that never aired or maybe I said it in the show that we did the following day because the other one just never aired. But I was worried about that because I think the matchup is terrible. So,
right.
getting run over for this 4 straight weeks in a row, where our defense just got hammered with the run game. Okay, it was 930 yards in the last 4 games rushing by opponents. That's an average of 232.5 a game.
Yep.
That's a lot. That's not going to get fixed. Thankfully, the next 2 teams I think are a better matchup for us, and that's where I remain optimistic. I think Florida State at this point in their game this year is an absolute nightmare for Syracuse. Just way too, dude. They are talented as hell on offense, man.
Yeah, they've only been getting better. They've been evolving, as we're talking about. Yeah,
yes, dude. Jordan Travis runs for one, throws for a couple, catches one. This dude's doing it all. I mean, what is he not doing? You know what I mean? How do you match that? How do you contend with
solid.
that, dude?
Yeah, solid,
big time. So,
and it's unfortunate because these next 2 games they're on the road. So now you're talking about 2 road games at the end of the season where it's going to be colder out, which we're not used to doing, is playing out in the elements. But then on top of that, these 2 were better matchups because guess what? They're passing teams. They're not running teams. They're not going to line up and just run down your throat because that's not what they've been doing.
Right.
But at this point, Garrett Williams is out for the season. Jahad Carter's most likely not playing next week.
Yeah.
So now, by the time we get to these are two teams that we would have been way better off playing earlier in the season. But now, because of the situation that we're in, I don't even know how our pass defense is going to hold up. Because I'm telling you right now, I mean, even this Boston College, this kid, Emmett Moorhead, has thrown for over 300 yards the last 2 games for Boston College, and they just beat NC State yesterday.
All of a sudden, they're awesome. Isn't that great?
I don't want to say that, but I'm saying.
No, you know what I'm saying. Yeah. It's difficult.
So,
well, I think when you look at the time of this, go ahead. I thought you were.
I was just saying this all echoes that how important that going back to that podcast, the preview for NC State, how important it was to get that. I remember us talking about how important it was to get that win because I'd said that if we didn't get that NC State win, that I was afraid that we were going to be 5-6 going into Boston College.
Yeah, well, it looks like that could have been the case. Now, when you look at timing and things like that, I think 4 out of the last 5 games of the season are definitely impacted by timing. And I think from Notre Dame, Pitt, Wake Forest, and Boston College are all games that are you could switch this schedule around any way you want, I think, and you could say the same thing. But for us, the way we're fragile, man. God dang it, the team's fragile, bro.
Yeah.
But here's another thing. Wake Forest defense is they're thin too. So, with that said, that's another thing to remain optimistic about. Okay, at least a little bit. They're letting through a lot of points, and like Joe said, they're not going to. Sam Hartman's he's struggled. He's going to put up points, man. He's going to be able to put up some points.
They're going to toss the ball for sure.
Yeah. This isn't a Wake Forest preview, but I'm just trying to I'm just trying to remain optimistic on a couple fronts, and that is that they are a little thin on defense. That helps us on offense. I think the defensive matchup for Syracuse is probably the best since Wagner. No, probably NC State, I guess, but you could honestly say Wagner. Okay,
NC State because of a backup quarterback.
Yeah, exactly. So, look, we put this one in the books. We still got a bowl game. It's not satisfying enough for me at this point to say, well, we got a bowl game. I know that it's great, and when Joe and I can agree to disagree about the importance of the game or whatever, and when you start 6-0, you start just raising those expectations. And here we are at 6-4, and we've got 2 games left in the regular season to make some noise. So. I guess we'll see. We'll see what happens. What happened? All right. Joe, are you ready to do Colgate real quick? Because here's the deal. Huh? Okay. All right.
I was gonna let you tell.
Okay. Yeah. So let's do Colgate. We didn't discuss that before the show, so I didn't want to blindside you. But let's do some Colgate stuff. And I think what we'll probably do is do the Wake Forest preview and Colgate postgame on Wednesday, Joe.
Makes sense.
Yeah, because otherwise we're going to be doing a show either at 10 o'clock at night right after the game or while the game's going on. So, all right, The all-time series between Syracuse and Colgate sits at 127-46 in favor of the Orange. We all remember the upset last year that Colgate pulled off, a 100-85 embarrassment that pretty much defined the season for Syracuse after the Raiders knocked down 18 threes in that game. Gerard, Buddy, Edward, Swider, and Jimmy, your 5 starters for that game. Gerard with 27 points and Jimmy with 10 rebounds in the loss. So Colgate, so far this year, they had a season opener loss to Buffalo, 88-87. They beat Brown 77-68. They're actually playing today, right now, as we're doing this show against Wells College. So they're going to have 3 games under their belt by the time we play them on Tuesday at 7. They've got 3 returning starters from last year's team. 5th-year senior Tucker Richardson, who swept the Patriot postseason awards and Player of the Year and all this, Defense Player of the Year. He's the only player in program history to reach 1,000 points, 500 assists, and 400 rebounds. So he's a problem. Then the fifth-year senior, Oliver Lynch Daniels, is also coming back. He led the Patriot League in three-point shooting percentage with 54.5. He was 48 for 88. Ryan Moffitt is the other one, 2-year starter. He returns for his senior season. He's another guy that can knock down some shots. At 52%, he finished from field goal percentage last year. So,
is that second guy really here?
Do what?
Well, I was just looking at it. That second guy that you just mentioned, I don't think he's with the team anymore.
Since when? Oliver Lynch Daniels?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just don't see him in any box scores this year.
All right, well, call me a hot dog and dip me in mustard. So, anyways, so those, I guess, besides Oliver Lynch, that's who's returning. But what else can you tell us, Joe? So Tucker Richardson, he's their guy. This dude's a fifth-year senior, obviously talented. I think he's like 6'5". He's a 6'5" guard. And he's a maniac. So, what else we got?
He is. Last year I think it was just a perfect storm because Colgate. I went ahead and I looked at the box score from last year, and obviously, Tucker had a good game against us, but also the other two that really were the main guys there that kind of led that game was Nelly Cummings and Jack Turd Ferguson. And those guys, Ferguson had 25 points. He had 6 of 13 from 3. Nelly Cummings, 6 of 13 from 3, 18 points. And Richardson, he only had 11. So when I went back and really looked at it, the main guys that I saw returning, Keegan Records, 6'10", 250 senior, played 18 minutes a game last year, or 18 minutes in the game that we played against him last year. Tucker Richardson, 6'5" senior, played 33 minutes. Ryan Moffitt, a 6'7" senior, played 32 minutes. And then off the bench, Sam Thompson at 6'9", and Jeff Woodward at 6'11". They came out and played a little bit. Thompson only played about 8 minutes. Woodward played about 20. But the biggest thing that I see from this team versus last year is that I think that the fact that their guard play, their guards were, you could argue more athletic than our guards. And our athleticism, team by team was a lot closer last year than this year. And now when I look down the board and I'm looking at the guards that are, that they're rolling with this year, they're relying on a true freshman, Braden Smith, 6-foot freshman, to come in and play the point guard with everyone else around him. So, realistically, obviously, Ferguson graduated. Nelly Cummings actually used his momentum of his season last year, and he actually transferred to Pittsburgh and is playing his last year as a Pittsburgh Panther this year. So, I just don't see the same Colgate team. They got, obviously, Tucker Richardson's a problem, and they got some big boys. But I don't see us playing that much zone against them. I don't see us allowing them to beat us with the three-pointers. But then at the same time, last year, the two guys that hit a total of 12 threes aren't there anymore. So overall, I just think we have a more athletic team. We're going to see more of the rotation that we've been seeing, and a little bit more man-to-man and 2-3 zone and switching it up. But as long as we don't get just dominated by the boards and we just have a super awful game, our guards are more athletic this year than they were last year. And like I said, with this type of height, and then you throw in a Nelly Cummings and then Ferguson, who could hit threes from wherever, that was a good Colgate team last year. And they're just I don't see them as the same team. So
Oliver Lynch Daniels, by the way, no, they're not the same team, but he is on the roster and he is all over Colgate Twitter. So maybe he's injured.
He might be.
But you're right. He's not in any of the box scores. So, anyway, it's not the same team. Look, I really think that last year's team. Did I say look twice? I
think so.
Last year's team was not good. It just wasn't good. It wasn't good. I feel like they did some things well, but they just weren't consistent, and it was just this game. I remember not poo-pooing the loss, but trying to remain optimistic about this team last year after this loss, and just being like, in the back of my head, being like, man, I felt like I was on the island all by myself. And everybody's like, oh, this team's going to be terrible. We're not going to make the tournament. And, it's like, it's the last thing you want to, like, jump to after a loss, against a team you should have beat. You know what I mean? They've been beating them since the 60s. I think Jim Boeheim was, like, 30-something and 1, and the 1 was last year, So it's like, I think that, you want to say, because Gerard played great in that game. If I remember right, Buddy was terrible. And I don't have a box score in front of me. Usually I'll pull that up, but I think Buddy was terrible. I remember thinking, man, freaking, that was awful. That was awful. But Gerard looked good with his 27 points and all that. So it's a game that Gerard's going to remember. And he played well, but I think, I don't think this is going to be something that we should really have to worry about this year. As far as the way that they shot and things like that, and we know that the way that they shot those threes and getting them to fall like that, that's an anomaly. It's not going to happen. Like you said, they're not going to play zone. This team's we're going to see a lot of man to man this year. It's going to be something. Talk about evolving with the times or with the situations. I think Coach Boeheim in his 47th year is going to do that. So. Well, it's gonna be It's gonna be fun to experience, I think.
Buddy actually played all 40 minutes and had 19 points, 7 to 16 shooting. So he didn't really play awful.
Okay.
But I think a lot of it was Jesse and the fact that I think their big guys kind of gave him some problems. So they out-rebounded us. They played us a little bit better, And I think, don't get me wrong, I remember last year the same thing. I remember going to work and being like, man, we just freaking Colgate put up 100 on us, and we lost by 15. So at the end of the day, I can understand being a little, upset about it as a Syracuse fan for sure last year. And I know traditionally too, I remember going through non-conference schedules, and in the years where we were always going to the tournament, it was like we would lose 1 or 2 games max in non-conference, right? We'd get out of non-conference at 10-2, 11-2, something like that. And, so when you drop a game to Colgate, then, that really doesn't give you that good of a start, And then, we lose to Georgetown. I mean, there's just, we got to have a better non-conference this year. And last year, like you said, coming out of a non-conference schedule where we had 5 losses going into ACC play, more times than not, I don't think we're making the tournament if that's how it goes. So
yeah, it wasn't great. We got a slate. Honestly, I think this year's isn't exactly the easiest non-conference I've seen. So I don't know what the hell Georgetown or Monmouth looks like, but got some games in here that are tough, and we'll just see. I don't even know who this team is yet, so we'll see.
None of us do.
I know.
But I know we're more athletic and better defensively already than last year's.
Yep. All right. So we will look forward to that on Tuesday, and we will be back again. We will be back here on Wednesday to talk about Wake Forest, and we will talk about the game against Colgate. So as of right now, it's time to hear from you.
It's time to hear from you, the loudmouths from the Loud House.
All right, you guys know what to do at the end of every game. I ask for your thoughts on said game, and we talk about them here. Look, it wasn't great, we know. So we're not going to dwell on a whole lot. And I haven't looked at these, so You did so good last time.
I did.
And by the way, there could be a reason why you did good last time is because I don't think there was any audio. So, anyways, we're gonna look at them live. All right, so here we go. Let's start with Twitter. And as soon as this mouse starts working, let's start with @Angular1810. Total embarrassment, completely outmatched. Could see it from the opening drive. Something shifted after that pick 6 to open up against Notre Dame. Do we win another game this year? Glad we don't have another home game in the Dome this year. Usually I'm glass half full guy, but that was bad. So, and then he goes on. 6 completed passes. I mean, wow. Bring on basketball, please. Yeah, the stats on the day, not great. And on either side of it for Syracuse. So, and you know what? Unfortunately, I don't have oh, here it is. Yeah, 6 for 16 for 65 yards. And by the way, very, very hesitant to do much outside of the pocket for Garrett Schrader, which obviously not like him. And, he calls, this says 10 carries for -2 yards. So, I mean, take that with a grain of salt, the actual number of carries there. But there was times where there was just nothing. He wasn't obviously not as mobile as he could be. So I don't know where he is on the healing process, but just visually to me, it wasn't there.
Well, and that's the thing too, is I looked at some of the things, like, and I try to dissect it, because overall you look at the offense and overall didn't look good, right? But when I look at like first down on our drives that we had for the whole game, I see run for 4 yards, run for 5 yards, run for 16 yards, run for 5 yards, run for 4 yards, run for 7 yards. Like, it looked like they made a point to try to get it to Sean Tucker, and he was getting 4 or 5 yards, but then there was a hold or illegal formation, or then the next 2 play calls would be crap. And, there's certain things that I also looked at to where, you scratch your head and you ask questions, because, like, Anthony Quealy, he's been starting at receiver the last 2 years, right? And Sean Tucker's been pretty successful the last 2 years. He's completely gone. And I don't know if that's just because he doesn't have a crazy, like, if he's not good at routes or pass catching ability, or if it was the change of the offense and everything. But this guy was a senior. He's been playing, and I know that, he leaves a little bit to be desired when it comes to the route running and catching the ball, but he was out there for blocking. And there were several plays that you've seen, not only just yesterday, but the games prior to, where we try to get the ball outside and receivers can't even hold blocks. DeMarcus Adams missed like 2 or 3 blocks yesterday that resulted in negative plays, where it probably would have been a positive play if he could have held his block. So again, there's just certain things you see where you wonder what the play call is and why we're doing certain things. And to be perfectly honest with you, I don't understand why we just don't dumb it down a little bit, get the guys in there that are going to be able to block and do what works, make it a little bit easy. I mean, we have a 0 all-out blitz yesterday, and we can't even just get somebody to do a quick slant and get the ball out of the, 2-second throw. It's like everything's got to be downfield. We're not making it easy. Our offensive coordinators or our coaches or whoever are just not making it easy. They're making it more difficult for what our players can deal with, especially with the injuries that we're dealing with right now. So it's just unfortunate, but some of these things, I mean, some of these plays are dead in the water before we.
I mean, you could feel it. You could feel it. It was the air was let out of the balloon so fast that, I mean, you knew.
Arande missed some blocks. I mean, he gets put into a tight end situation where he goes in motion sometimes and blocks. He's not a tight end. I know he's out there for his pass catching ability, but it's just starting off 6-0. I think everyone had their confidence there, and everyone was, they bought in and they were doing what they were supposed to do because they were winning. And then sometimes when you start losing, people go rogue. People start losing confidence. People start trying to do stuff for themselves, and that's when this type of stuff gets ugly.
That's what you worry about, is losing the locker room, and I don't know if this is that type of team. And you heard Garrett talk about, got to play as a unit. So look, we'll just have to see what happens going forward. At JCM Matt, I guess. James. Let's call him James. Only highlight of the night, fingers crossed, the basketball team has improved. Tonight was an absolute S show. He's got a Carmelo Anthony gif here. So Carmelo was there, and that was great, I guess. But if that's the highlight, we got a problem. At biggest Cuse fan, so it turns out that non-call on the out of bounds changed the entire narrative of the season. That and Schrader's injury, and we caught Florida State at the wrong time. That's about it. I guess they're talking about that roughing the passer call against Clemson. I think that's what he's talking about. So, look, there's a couple things we just heard right before that, talking about the pick six at Clemson. That was a defining moment. There's a lot of things that you can point to, and maybe none of them even matter, other than the injuries and being able to put together a cohesive plan going forward. And not saying it's easy, but that just seems to be the issue. It's a totally different team. And I feel like they're still, like you said, looking downfield. Like, it's just not there. Like, we've got to make this thing a little bit more elementary. And I'm not saying to dumb it down because the players are too stupid to understand it. I'm just saying it's got to be a little bit more pedestrian than what you're used to.
Yeah, well, I mean, if the basic plays aren't working, what's going to make you think that the trick plays or some other flashy play? It's just I don't know. It's just tough. Like, even like I said yesterday, they had that counter play where, Schrader, he hands it off and then goes out and lead blocks, right?
Yeah.
And he did a great job because he was, and this is the play I was talking about with DeMarcus Adams.
Mm-hmm.
DeMarcus Adams didn't. I don't even know if he touched his guy.
I don't think he did.
Next thing you know, Tucker minus 2, 3, 4 yards, whatever. So again, I mean, sometimes you got to just hand it off, just line up. Like, you see all these other teams just lining up and handing it off. Like, I don't understand why we can't do that same thing. I don't understand why we got a lineman, an ex-offensive lineman in there at fullback going in motion and having to run out and try to block some of these guys that he clearly just can't handle. I don't know why we're getting blitzed and we don't have enough guys on the line to block the people that are coming, and everyone's running 10 and 15-yard routes. I mean, these things it makes me scratch my head.
At Robert Lobello, one-on-one tackling was absolutely horrible. We got big-bodied penalties destroyed us, just like all year. Yeah. At No Blanchard, 44. Sean Tucker is likely returning next year. This is all orange. P.S. Touchdowns are when you cross the goal line with possession of the football and are worth 6 points, just in case anyone forgot. So, yeah, it's been 8 quarters since Syracuse scored a touchdown. That is a little surprising to me.
And we couldn't even get in at the end.
We couldn't even get it in at the very end. LaQuint Allen had a chance at the 1 yard line. Correct? I mean, what? I
think we had a time. Did we have a timeout? Could we have not just called the timeout to get a touchdown to try to do something?
I don't know. Like Coach mentioned it in his presser, and he basically said, it didn't. At the end of the day, it didn't matter. It would have been nice to get in there, but it didn't. What's it going to do? I think was kind of
maybe give some people some confidence. The under was going to hit regardless. It doesn't really matter. Just get us a touchdown.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. You want to see him get in the end zone, right? I mean, we've got a total of 12 points in 2 games. This right? Yeah. So, it's brutal. That's brutal. When you put that into perspective with the numbers, it's absolutely brutal. And
right.
You talk about giving Tucker, give Tucker the ball. Well, Tucker's getting the ball. He can't. Unfortunately, he's not Superman. As much as we'd like to believe he is, he's not. He needs something, and some help, for crying out loud. He can't do it all himself, and that's where we're at. And you got to get a little bit more creative with some of these things, and to be able to. And people got to freaking pick up blocks and help. I don't know.
Well, they can pick up blocks, not without holding, but they can. And that's really what it is. And that's the frustrating thing is the beginning. Okay, I can get it. It's a feeling out process stuff, and we get a field goal, and then we get a turnover, and we get a chance to possibly get back into the game. And then that's just when it was penalty after penalty. Like, it's hard to even, I know that I have my own thoughts about offensive play calling and being able to dumb it down, making things a little bit easier. But I don't even know how these drives would have ended without these penalties that just ended them for us, or these sacks that just ended them for us.
We'll never know.
Nope. That's my point, though.
Yeah, I know.
You can blame this, but if this, then this. I don't know.
That's where the old ifs and buts.
Chicken or the egg, right?
Yeah, what the hell. Let's see. At Stalate 23, don't feel Schrader hasn't been himself since that one bad tackle at Clemson. Not sure why they didn't bring on CDR. Our defense is great, but undersized in the last several games. Still is pain. Yeah, it's painful. It was painful. It continues to be painful. And I don't know. I don't know when the pain ends. At David7W, the war chant while we had an injured player on the field was a disgrace. I stayed and said goodbye to our seniors. Good job, David, by the way. Stayed and said goodbye to our seniors and showed my appreciation. Had a cool moment with Michael. So that's awesome. And
yes,
Michael was one of the guys I was talking about in the beginning or at some point on the front end of the show, who did mention that, how special that moment is for those guys to go around, do the senior walk, and get to talk to the fans that do stay. It means a lot to those guys. And at the end of the day, it is just a game. You hate to say, well, it's just a game, you know, but it's true. It's just a game, and the relationships made, and especially with the way, our team gets to interact with the seniors like that. I think it's a special thing. And
yeah,
look, you want to win, yeah. You want to at least make it close, yeah. But at the end of the day, we got 3 games. That was the last home game, obviously. But if you can go on the road and support, or if you can, whatever, doesn't matter. Yeah. It means a ton to those guys, and there's no quitting this team. So as fans, I don't think we should quit on them.
No, they got the
harder job. Yeah,
they're going to keep going. Like I said, we're both going to the Wake Forest game, and it's going to be high 30s, low 40s outside at 8 o'clock. Be there till 11:30, and we're still going even after last week or yesterday and what we saw. Kudos to the fans that stayed back. Like I told you, I understand that there's circumstantial things with certain fans that left early. And my beef is basically the guys that are doing. You see a post on Facebook or on Twitter that are like, thank you, seniors, this, and then you hear nothing but fans bashing them. Like, these are kids that decided to come here. I don't understand what the negativity towards them is. I can understand being negative
players,
towards
you're saying.
Yes, towards the players. If you want to be negative towards the coaches, you can be negative toward the coaches all day long. If you want to sit here and say, oh, we got to get this, bro, fire Babers because X, Y, and Z, or he can't recruit, or we've been hearing the same thing since the end of Pascalone's tenure with every coach that's came in. So, again, I like to remind people, Doug Marrone went 500 in 4 years. 500 in 4 years. That's 6-6. It's probably what we're going to be this year. 6-6 he went, pretty much. I know he had some bowl game wins in there, but I think he was 26 for 26. Either way, he was 500 and he got an NFL coaching job. Okay, that should tell you all you need to know about this job. This job is not a pretty one in the Power 5 compared to all the other Power 5s. We have some things that hamstring us in being able to compete with a Clemson and a Notre Dame and a Pittsburgh and see all these teams back to back to back, especially a Clemson and a Notre Dame. So, I mean, we can talk about chicken, egg, this, that. You can continually bitch about the coaches. That's fine. Everyone that I've seen since 2000 that's come in hasn't been able to do it. And after 3 or 4 years, the people say the same thing. So, again, we talked about it last year. Is it the destination? We talked about it last week. Is it the destination or is it the coaches? Or are they just doing the best they can? But regardless, I don't care. Like, any fan who's going to leave and then go trash those kids, I'm sorry. Like, I got no respect for you whatsoever.
Well, I don't either. It just makes people feel better.
And how does that help?
It doesn't help at all, but they don't care. So, that's the problem. That's some of the problems with the social media stuff. And, look.
That's the problem with instant gratification in this.
That could be part of it, but I think
society that we live in.
Well, I think that the platforms that we have just snowball those types of feelings because, I mean, let's be honest, fans have been nasty before, the instant gratification crowd started. Like, it's just things move so much quicker now.
No, they're louder.
Yeah, you see so much more because of just the technology. I think it might feel that way, but it's always been there. And I mean, honestly, there's been time. Look, I would never, even if I didn't do the show, I would never get on there and trash the players. I think it's just like you said. What does that help? It doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help anybody.
I'll tell you what, it doesn't help the recruits that went to that game.
Yeah, I know.
See that
right? It's bad enough. It's bad enough they went to that game and had to watch what happened. And
right, and that's just the difference. I remember way back, Dick McPherson, when they ended up coming up and they ended up almost winning the national championship with Donnie McPherson. He came in second place voting in Heisman, and that was really what started Syracuse in that the '87 around that type of era. That type of time frame, late 80s. But before that, he wasn't doing good. And guess what? There was no social media. There was no internet to go on and crap about. There was a radio show that probably somebody called in on. And then guess what? If you didn't like the coach, guess what you had to do? You had to buy a ticket. You had to go to the game. And you had to show up with brown bags over your head. Or you had to go to the game and boo the coach and boo this and show your disdain that way. But you were still buying a ticket and going. Nowadays, you got these people that just don't even go to the game and sit there and just hide behind their damn keyboards and just talk all this trash. And then to kids, nonetheless. You know what I mean? And that's like...
And I don't really know how
it just brings me back to the Mike Gundy. The Mike Gundy rant all the time a couple years ago.
Oh, yeah, that was... Yeah, when he was excoriating the media.
Right, because they were going after kids.
Right, yeah. You want to blame someone, blame me. I'm a grown man. I'm 40 years old.
No, I'm not yet, but almost. But either way, right? Like, that's just the situation. I can't. It's disgusting to me when you have these kids that all they're doing, you know what I mean? You get a scholarship offer, no fault of your own, through this school. They decide to go to this school and play their ass off for 3 to 4 to 5 years. And just because the record doesn't live up to your expectations, no matter the reason.
By the way, a 40-year-old Mike Van Gundy still looks older than me at 44. So I'm just saying.
Gundy.
Van Gundy. Yeah, Mike Gundy. Yeah. So I'm just saying. But look, also one of the better press conferences besides every Coach Boeheim press conference. So, all right, let's move on to Facebook. David. Starts with the fact that the defense never gives up and plays their butts off, gets turnovers, backups play just as hard if needed, offense does nothing with the turnovers. Schrader was obviously still hurt and couldn't throw on the run. I don't know. I just don't know where the offense went. Missing guys on the O-line makes a huge difference in the timing. Still better record than most, though, but upsetting. Yes, so the one thing I take out of this, let's see. We got that ball. That missed field goal was off of a turnover, was it not? The 54-yarder where we went backwards in
that's what I was saying.
3 consecutive plays, and then we end up with a 54-yard attempt that's missed. So,
that's what I said. That's why even though the first 3 drives, right? The first 3 drives was 3 plays for 7 yards and a punt, minute 33. 3 yards 3 plays, negative 10 yards, a minute 57 and a punt. 3 plays, 6 yards, a minute 40 and a punt. That was our first 3 drives in the first quarter. And, I think Florida State went up to a 14-0 lead. We get the ball, and because of a face mask, we end up getting into field goal range. A couple plays, too, whatever. Kick a field goal, get it to 14-3.
Big Tucker run in there, I think, is his long run was on that stretch.
And so then... Oh yeah. We started the drive out with a 16-yard run from Tucker.
Yeah.
And then there was a face mask and everything like that. But when we kicked it off, 2 plays later, we get the fumble, and now we're in field goal range. We can go get a touchdown and make it 14-10. We can get a field goal, make it 14-6. Still a 1-possession game, and we had a pass for -1. We had a run for -5, and then we got sacked for -6. It ended up being 3 plays for -12 yards, and then we missed the field goal. So, after that, it was like winds out of our sails, and then it was just a penalty almost every. I think there was a penalty for the next 3 possessions that we had going into overtime, and then even the coming out of halftime. Coming out of halftime, we had a run for 5 yards. We had a run for 6 yards for a first down.
But
then there was a legal formation, goes back to 2nd and 10. And it's like you're just right back to square one. So
positive plays in penalties is like a kick right in the nuts every time.
And that was the worst game all year that we did that. The worst by far. We've had penalties. We'd have a little false starts and crap like that. But I don't care if holding is 10 yards, you go backwards. We had too many of those. And too many of those in the timely situations. Penalties probably stalled 4 to 5 of our drives yesterday, and that's the worst all year. And like I said, that's not why we lost the game, but it'd be nice to be able to play a clean game, and that's why I said I didn't think once you get emotionally into it, right? Senior night, everyone's emotions are going. We've lost 3 straight. I think they start to lose it here. They're just trying to make plays, and they stop thinking about stuff. And like what Schrader said, they're not playing cohesively. Defense made a whole bunch of blunders where guys were in there trying to make plays instead of doing what they were supposed to do. I mentioned Justin Barron. And like I said, how many times does Wes Ho need to mess up before you get him out of there? I don't know.
Maybe the alternative is even worse. We don't know.
Well, Max Main came in last year and the year before and played okay. So I don't really understand that portion of it either. So again, a lot of these questions, like I spoke about Anthony Quealy being able to block earlier, and that's the main reason why he was out there last year was to block as a receiver. But maybe with this quarterback coach and this offensive coordinator is the reason why we see different personnel, and it's why we see better things in some areas and worse things in others. And I think that's partly has a lot to do with Sean Tucker this year.
All right, top fan, Dominic on Facebook. We look worse than last season, and I was supposed to be this guru. I'm starting to lose faith in Dino's ability to game plan regardless of who the offensive coordinator is. His staff also can't recruit consistently on the offensive side of the ball, and that was supposed to be Baber's strength. A lot of this, I'm not, the recruiting thing I'm not even going to get into because that's a rabbit hole. We did that. We already did it. I feel like we talked about it in length, and you can put all the blame on the coaches for at least for this one, and probably more, obviously. But I think that's obvious that there's an issue with the game plan, and also coach realized it, and he it was one of the first things he said in his press conference. So. With that said, once you know what the problem is, the next step is how do you fix it? And I'm assuming that they've known what the problem is for the past couple weeks, and they're having a hard time fixing it. And is that because Garrett Trader's on the fence the past couple weeks? Is it because they weren't expecting to have to use Del Rio, last week against Pitt for the whole game? I don't know.
Are they apprehensive to change a whole bunch of stuff up? There's a lot of things, right? Like you're going to change everything up.
I think
you've been having all these guys play a certain scheme. Are we going to change it up for Del Rio Wilson just for Schrader to come back 2 weeks?
Well, like I said, there's enough talent and football IQ on this team. I feel like you that's your job. I'm not smart enough to figure it out. I don't coach a D1 football team. That's why. You coach a D1 football team. That's your job. So that's, I mean, I don't know how else to put it. You're the coach. You're going to have to figure it out. You got 3 games left in a bowl game. Like, can you imagine this team being, is like, picture what you saw last night in a bowl game. Like, okay, we get to go to a bowl game. Oh.
I won't. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it.
Like, oh, we get to go to a bowl game. Like that's
where I think. I mean, I'm not saying that this is where I think like that they're not trying to win.
It's not
games,
what I'm saying. What I'm saying is if you don't figure it out, then you are going to end up. First of all, with this said, Florida State awful matchup. But if you don't figure it out, in the product that we've been seeing, if that's what it's going to be for the remainder of the year, that's going to be a huge problem. That's all I'm saying. I don't think it's going to be. I think that somewhere, somehow, these things turn around. Does it happen in a week for Wake Forest? I don't know. I'd be hard-pressed to believe that. But what we're seeing is abysmal, to say the least.
You know, we're going to be shivering our asses off trying to figure it out. That's for sure. I mean, look, there's going to be 2-3 week gap between, our last game and going to a bowl. So we're going to have time in those practices to be able to get maybe some of the younger guys coached up, maybe change some things up. I mean, that's probably where I'd be most confident is getting to that. I mean, we're going to be in a bowl game. So it's tough to just change stuff up in the middle of the season in a week.
I get that. Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, realistically, like I said, it's just my expectations for the next 2 games, I don't really have any. Just because I'm a fan in North Carolina. This is the only game they come down here for, and they're already bowl eligible, so I'm going to go. But my expectations for the next 2 weeks, don't have any. My expectations for the bowl game, a little bit different.
Yeah, well, there's going to be some time in between there to, get a little bit more healthy.
Well, my thing, too, is that the team we play in a bowl game is most likely not going to be as good as the last 4 teams we played.
Absolutely.
And when you look at the last
Illinois? You still on Illinois or what? No. With Chase Brown, Brown.
I'll tell you what. Only reason I say that, number one, is because Illinois' defense is legit.
They're like one of the best in the country. Yeah.
Kudos for Purdue for beating them yesterday. And not for nothing, but it looked to me like the end of the game, was it Chase Brown, the running back? Mm-hmm. It looks like he had a season-ending injury. So
I didn't notice that.
Yeah, he got rolled up on in his ankle or whatever, and he was out on the sideline.
Oh wow!
He was screaming.
Oh no, that's not good. Yeah, he's the nation's leading rusher. He's an amazing back.
Right. So as far as that's concerned, I mean, I would still like to see it because I think it would give our defense motivation to go after it. But I mean, the offense that we've had the last couple weeks against that defense, it would scare the crap out of me. But yeah, I mean, realistically, you got to look at it. This again was another week where, we're out snapped on offense by 23 snaps, 36 minutes to 24 minutes time of possession. I mean, this has been the last 4 weeks. Last 4 weeks, the opponents had somewhere between 36 to 38 minutes of time of possession, and we've been anywhere between 22 and 24. And every single one of those 4 teams has had over 20 offensive snaps more than us. So, like, to your point, that's the coach's job to figure out what you need to do to fix that, because those type of time of possession discrepancies and
well, coach too, what he was saying with some of the defensive woes with being able to get the ball shoved down your throat, they do start. Some of it starts with the offense, and if you've got an offense that is not able to sustain drives, and they're not able to play the field position game, and you're doing 3-4 plays and you're done. That's an issue. You get putting the defense in a bad spot every single time, and okay, for instance, dude. I think it's time to stop the charade of we want to start fast and score, and just defer the damn ball. Like, just defer.
Oh, we want to stop now?
Huh?
We've received the ball every.
I know it doesn't work out. I hate it.
Well,
because
it worked out the first 6 games.
Well, you know what though?
I can understand.
You don't. Maybe you do it against certain teams, but I don't think this is a team that you do it against because they had 2 possessions in a row, and Notre Dame had 2 possessions in a row, and it's one of those things. Is like it just comes back to haunt you later. Not that it would have made a big difference. Okay, it's not what I'm saying. It wouldn't have made a big difference. Now they get that onside kick, you get a little bit of momentum. Who knows what happens? But
it's got to go 10 yards.
Yeah,
5.
Yeah, I know. Well, obviously, it needs to go further. Yes, it needs to go further. But with that said, it was just poor execution on that. I mean, the coach said, "Hey, let's do this. Let's get in a fight," and was not a good enough kick. So, anyways, all right, we are never going to get through any of this fan feedback, Joe, if you don't stop talking. David, top fan David on Facebook. I think the issue is cultural. There's something going on behind the X's and O's injuries and talent that has caused the team to not score a touchdown in 10 consecutive quarters. Well, it's 8. I believe it's 8, but I don't know. I don't know if there is or not. And it makes for a conversation, but I don't think they've lost the team, and I just don't feel that with the players, with just watching them play, the effort that they give. I just don't see it. I do think it's just injuries, and I think it's game planning, and I just think that it hasn't been great. And what do you think, Joe? I don't think that there's something else going on. Like I felt that last year when DeVito was in the locker room, but I don't feel it this year. What about you?
As far as the locker room goes, no.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's a difference between losing a locker room and like guys out there trying to make plays for themselves, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
you know?
I mean, there could be some selfish plays. There could be some selfish play, I should say. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, like I'm going to go for the sack, even though I know my gap is here, and now I just hung my boy out to dry type stuff. Like that kind of stuff doesn't mean that you lost the locker room, so to speak. But just, I mean, these last 4 defenses have been really, really good. And the Captain Patrick's comment in the room,
in the green room,
if we can't score against Wake Forest next week, then we have a problem. Then we have a huge problem.
Score a touchdown. Let's be specific. Get in the end zone.
Oh, dude, come on, bro. I'm not just holding the standard to 1. Wake Forest defense is not good.
They're not good, and they're thin. So that's you've got to be able to score. And we'll see. We'll see. I expect Garrett Trader to start next week. I guess that's a good thing. Maybe this was just a knock the rust off kind of game, and we'll go from there. Look, let's see. Robert on Facebook. So in the 40 years I've been going to the Dome, this was the very first time I ever left early. The interception in the 4th did it. I feel horrible for these seniors. I don't really blame the D. They played their asses off until they were just gassed. On 4th and 2 in the 3rd, the punting team came out, and I swear I heard a groan from the sidelines. That was the defense. Offensively, the most embarrassing game I've ever seen. I have no other words, and we seem to have wasted a very special running back. I honestly don't know what to think. I'm the most positive fan you'll find, but not tonight. So, I mean, just pure emotion there. And look, I get some of that. And if my mouse would work, my gosh, this is so annoying.
Yeah. Well, you got to be balanced.
Yeah, you do. And look, there was good reason to not stay for the whole game. He doesn't stay for the whole game for the first time, he says, in 40 years. And, he doesn't trash the players. It just was too much for him to handle, right? The game's over. Leave early. Want to stay for senior night or senior walk. But
that wasn't a worse offensive day we've ever had either.
I don't think so. It wasn't great, though, Joe.
I'm not saying it was, but, I mean, let's not sit here and act like we're just going to forget the 4 years that, as much as I'd love to, that Greg Robinson was here. Okay?
By the way, wasting a very special running back. I mean, I don't think he's wasted. Obviously, there's some gas left in the tank, and it looks like he's coming back. Right? He didn't have nearly the season that he probably even wanted to have or would have liked to have. Obviously, would have liked to have, but I think he even expects more from himself. But like I said, he can't do it all. He's got to get some help. And with that said, man, they're gonna have to figure that part out. And I just don't know how to do it. I ain't the coach. I know what my eyes see.
Well, he's lost too much stock.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no guarantee that he's. Dino always says that unless you think you're going to get a third round or above grade, as far as rounds getting drafted, then you don't go.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously it makes sense. By the way, the mouse pad seems to be the problem with the mouse. I don't know what's up with that. How's that possible? It's a mouse pad. Anyway, Joe P on Facebook, top fan. He says, no good ones, meaning comments. Defense did what they could with an offense that went 3 and out seemingly every time. Short fields, always on the field. What do you expect? This offense has become a joke, and I can barely stand to watch anymore. Love you guys, but you won't be seeing me wasting my money to come to Winston-Salem next week for this. Wow. So.
It's unfortunate, Joey. Hoping to see you there, but I get it.
I mean, I get some of the sentiments, but he's in Charlotte, right? So
yeah.
They need to show up at somewhat next week. I don't know what next week's game looks like, but the fan base is obviously they're in the corner. Rocking,
Yeah, and I do know that those tickets got a little cheaper the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, our tickets were $25 a piece. They're probably going to get cheaper than that.
Probably.
Because those tickets that we got, I think when I was looking earlier in the week, were $50.
Yeah, they were. But it's hard to get a row of 10 on StubHub.
It's tough to get a row of 10. Yeah, it's going to be romper room. But... Don't know what else to say. But look, what's Patrick saying? I think he says, I thought Sean Tucker looked a little more explosive last night than the past few games. Well, he was trying, not for lack of trying. By the way, there was a long pass for Tucker that was just overthrown slightly.
Yeah.
That would have been a beauty, by the way. And he could have taken it to the house maybe even, but... I think Schrader knocking the rust off. Look, I say he gets all the reps this week, and I think we at least see the offense do a little bit better against a defense that isn't as stymieing as the ones we've been facing. I mean, this matchup bodes better for us than even Pitt, I think, at this point. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Pitt was one I thought for sure we're a better team than Pitt. Right.
But now that we're at the passing offenses the last 2 weeks of the season, I mean, at least they're outside in some elements, so maybe that'll be a little bit of a help. But now we're minus Jahad Carter and Garrett Williams, so we'll see how that goes. Because I mean, Wake Forest is a good passing team. Sam Hartman's a good quarterback. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even Jordan Travis was 21 for 23, which is amazing. And 3 touchdowns, which is even more amazing. But 155 yards. This is short.
They're just setting up. What do you think about LaQuinn Allen?
Thought he looked good, but I don't know who he was playing against either. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Thought he looked good though. But I mean, I always wondered why we don't sprinkle that in a little bit more. And I mean, I don't know what the answer there
is. That's what I was wondering too. We're playing all these teams that play 2-3 running backs against us.
Yeah. Why not?
Sean Tucker's in there, and when he's not, we go to spread.
Exactly. And why not throw 2 running backs in at the same time? I don't know. I wondered. We wondered that weeks ago. We talked about it, but
so we're relying too many of the same people. Yes. Without changing.
Yes, which is what do you do to stop Syracuse? Well, you got to stop Aranda Gadsden. Check. Oh, you got to stop Sean Tucker. Check. You got to stop Garrett Schrader. Check. What else is there? No. We got to develop more weapons. And to develop weapons, you got to give them the ball. Huh?
I said blitz a little bit, they'll hold you. And the next thing you know, I mean, that was my worry was that when we got to 3rd and long these past 3-4 weeks, it's just been they pin your ears back and just they go after your quarterback. You know, we just can't put ourselves in the positions of being in 3rd and long, but the play calling or the penalties, it's always something that gets us.
And by the way, with Schrader, and we know Schrader how gritty and determined he is, especially when he's backed into a corner. But I feel like either some a confidence issue, or maybe not so much a confidence issue, but maybe he's worried about getting re-injured is maybe lingering in the back of his head. There's something there because he just wasn't himself. I mean, he's obviously something.
No,
still,
I mean, he's not going to be able to move like he did, right?
That, but he didn't do even. He wasn't even close. There was nothing.
See, but then that's my thing is that if you're worried about being re-injured and that's going to affect your play, then you don't need to be out there.
I would agree.
Just my opinion.
I would agree. But, all right. Well, I think that is about it for us. We appreciate all of you who listened. Thanks for tuning in. I know it's tough. 4 in a row. We'll get back on the schneid here, or get off the schneid.
Hey, we're in a bowl.
Appreciate all of you in the green room.
You've been 6-4 this long and this deep in.
For Joe, I'm Sean. We're out. What, Joe?
Peace. I said, when was the last time we were 6-4 this deep in a damn season, other than Dungy's senior year?
Well, it was only a couple years ago.
Yeah, it was 2018, but what about before then?
I couldn't tell you.
That's what I'm saying, though.
1997.
Lies. Probably before that, but I don't know. It's just crazy to me how, like, I get that people are frustrated, but they talk like McNabb was here 5 years ago.
I know. It feels like 30 years ago.
That's because it almost was.
I know. Hey, I appreciate all you guys in the green room. I really wish this thing would catch on a little bit more. I'm not sure why it hasn't, but I appreciate all of you.
Well, because
you guys are fucking
we didn't start
awesome.
It, they started losing.
Now the green room has been kind of just stale. It's just it hasn't grown, and I don't know. Maybe there's just not an interest in it. But I will say this: it doesn't fucking matter to me if I got all you guys in there. So.
Oh yeah.
And plus, look, and it's just what it is that no, you're not stale. You misunderstood me. That's why that's why I corrected what I said. Look, the whole point of the green room thing is to get a big group of people in here, and I think that we got a good group, and I appreciate it. I just think about how good it could be if we get like 10 or 15 in here and how much fun it could be. It's like its own show inside of a show that no one knows about. And it's weird because if you go in there, if you were to just go force yourself to go in there and take a look at it, you would probably come back. And the other thing too is when the team this is just like the negatives of doing a podcast. So when the team's terrible, the show just doesn't do as good. It just doesn't. People don't want to come here and listen to us talk about Syracuse losing. And I get it, but it's very hard to re-engage an audience that's disconnecting late. Like, I guarantee you once basketball season starts up, for good, like when we're there full bore on it, it's going to be good at first, and then if they turn out to not be so great, it's going to be the same thing. That's just
but why does everything got to be like going good to have a conversation or debate?
And that's the thing. That's why this is just us drinking beer and talking shit. So it's not like, I don't know. People just lose interest, man.
As a Cuse fan, or everybody, like, there's Syracuse fans all over the place. I mean, everyone's got their own little thought or theory about why